Greetings, friend. How are you doing today? I have a couple questions for you today. First question. Do you know what Henry David Thoreau says about three-dimensional lenticular printing? And the second question. Do you know what Dr. Deepak Chopra, a very well-known neurologist and personal development guru, says the a very effective, efficient antidote or solution for anxiety and fear and worry and depressions and so forth. This week, you and I been sharing on what are some things, some tools that you can use to be able to easily still have the excellent result that you would love and you've been preparing for, even when one after another things going against you suddenly or perhaps consistently for years. And such as my experience with my speaking or my client experience. And one way to do that, to be able to, one of the tool is to actually to be able to look at things, to practice what Dr. Deepak Chopra says, actually the effective and fast working antidote for anxiety and worry and fear, which a couple days ago you and I share about acknowledging your feeling. When something happened, it's many times we want to just be strong or something, but it's actually more effective and allow you to be more expansive if you acknowledge your feeling instead of trying to stuff it in, which many times turn into grief in the long run. So acknowledge your feeling. But now you acknowledge your feeling, you might say, okay, I'm noticing anxiety. I'm noticing that I'm worrying that things might not work out the way with, say, a presentations, that I'm fearful that we might not have the result that I should have, and all these things, right? And so Dr. Chopra says that one that work very quickly and very efficiently for all those actually is gratitude. And you might say, oh gosh, I have heard about gratitude about a million times. And that's very true. Many times many of us hear about gratitude. But there are actually studies showing that when you express gratitude, even just one time, they show this in studies, it's actually caused changes, not just in your biochemical systems, it's actually even caused changes that is lasting, by the way, in your brain, in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. As a result, when you express gratitude, and when in particular when you are able to express gratitude for the circumstance, about the circumstance that you have. So it's one thing to express gratitude, let's say to say I still have clothing to wear, which is awesome, of course, but what about the circumstance that you have? Because that, like those three-dimensional lenticular printing, if you ever see them, those are those print, that's photo where you look at it from one way. It might look, the first one I recall that I saw was this cartoon character named Stitch, and it was the coolest thing that I remember it forever. If you look at this printing one way, Stitch looked like the monster versions of himself, and then you look at it the other angle, Stitch looked like this adorable little thing of himself, and then you look at it in different angle, and he looks somewhere in between, and it is so cool that I keep remembering it. And so the same thing with your circumstance, it's kind of like Stitch. It could be a monster, and at the same time it could also be something that perhaps adorable, and creating an adorable result depend on how you see it, and depend on whether you are able to find gratitudes about it. Because Henry David Thoreau says, coincidentally with me being Concord, is that Henry David Thoreau says that it is not what you look at that matter, it's what you see. Are you seeing some things that hopeless, Or are you seeing something that, as we said yesterday, that you are going to adapt and still have an awesome result? And with me, with my experience with this presentations, I check into the flight was late and this and that, and couldn't remember my couldn't memorize my presentation, so forth. And I said, okay, well then I'm going to adapt. I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to change the way I see things and I do things. I adapt and do what I can with what I have, as we shared yesterday. And I look at it and I said, okay, I'm just going to change this and I'm going to change that, adapting right at the moment. And who knows? I walk in the room, which was not the room that I requested either, but I walk in this room that looked like the smallest room possible. But at the same time, there was a bench. Instead of any other thing, there was a bench that when I set it up in such a way, who knows? The bench actually fell at the height where the podium would have been. Can you imagine this? And I, in my life, never used a podium for speaking. So that alone is an adaptation for me. And so the bench fell right at the height where the a podium would have been. And so I was very grateful for that. I'm like, okay, somebody's looking after me. And that, just life looking after me. I'm so grateful that there is a bench that's about podium height that I could at least practice one run of this. It's only 25 minutes presentation. I could at least practice one run of this and see where I could possibly, if this is the podium, I could possibly stand and so forth. And then, since I thought about that, and I feel grateful, and it's allow my energy to expand and to increase to the higher energy. And as Dr. Chopra also says, that when you are grateful, it's allow you to be more creative. And when you are more creative, you'll be able to adapt even better. And that remind me to something else. I learned to have more than one pair of shoes when I travel. And so I said, oh, wait a minute. I think I have a different pair of shoes that would work a little bit better than for this. And for some of you who have met me in person, I'm kind of tiny. I am 5 feet if even when I stand on bare feet. And if you've ever seen podium, I basically typically close to disappear behind a podium. And so I said, oh wow, there's these other shoes that I did not plan to wear. It's just a backup shoes, and it's happened to have a slightly higher heel than the one that I was initially planning. So at least now that I am to use the podium, I would not disappear behind the podium. And I'm so grateful that my intuition just told me to bring that particular shoes with me and with this particular time. And so I'm so grateful that I actually was able to have all those things, to adjust and to discover all these things in face of the circumstance. Still, it still does not be able to do this and not be able to do that and not be able to do other things, and so on and so forth. And so what are some of the things that you might be able to be grateful for? Perhaps even celebrating. I say, oh yeah, let's celebrate this being able to practice. And I was able to practice everything smoothly, even though it was brand new to me. I was like, I'm gonna just practice, pretend this bench is a podium, and practice. And I was able to, the second time I ran it went smoothly. And I said, yes, I'm celebrating this, because why? Because celebrations also increase your energy, your vibrations, allow you to expand and allow things, as we discussed, to flow better with the universe when you're vibrating at the higher vibrations. And so what are certain things in your circumstance that you have right now, and how do we know that you might have a circumstance? And it might not be necessarily presentations, it might not necessarily be a lifelong dream, the way my client with him, when he first, as I shared on Monday, this client who has long-term 30 years of dreaming, being able to be with the love of his life. When he first meet this person who's now his wife, finally after 30 years. He has certain things that he was always stressed and was always tense, and also he actually had a borderline high blood pressure, and so he started practicing gratitude, and practicing, okay, well, he could have said something differently during the date one time. Oh God, I could have said something like that. It's like, okay, well, what were you grateful for? At least what you not saying certain thing that you thought could have said that you are grateful about. And it was, well, okay, I could have been this, but turned out that she was fine with that after all. And that means he's a nicer person than I even thought. That was one of the time that happened with him. And so forth and so on. And actually it's helped with his blood pressures at the end of the day. So perhaps it's something that you have been endeavoring for a lot of time. Perhaps it's a current, just brand new situations. With being human, we typically, if you are growing, you have a circumstance you are facing. What are some of the things that you could be grateful and celebrate, as Dr. Deepak Chopra says, which is the antidote for feeling hopeless, for being depressed, for being worried, for anxious, and for fear. And when you're able to do that, you'll be able to feel a lot more at ease and have fun allowing that. I was having a lot of fun changing different views and just testing this. Okay, if I can stand this angle, my hand got this way. It was a little comical, to say the very least. And perhaps look at things in a different way, thinking about this cartoon or the image, and just see how could you look at the same thing and see a different thing, just like when you have a three-dimensional lenticular printing, and perhaps even get yourself one if it helps you remember to be doing that. I actually have a few clients do that, get a printing that they love and then look at it that move in a way that they can help remember to see things differently. And so please share in the comment below if there is something that you are grateful about your circumstance. In the circumstance itself, what can you be grateful about? And perhaps even celebrating, because now you see a different way on how you could possibly adapt to this thing and work things through a different angle. And that's definitely worth a celebrations. And perhaps share in the comment below if you have any feedback. Please feel welcome to share this video. And this is Birgit with Joyful Riches Beyond Grief, and I love you very, very much. I see as you practice this and use this tool that you experience even more ease, more flow, more abundance, more expansions and success in your life, creating a beautiful, thriving life one day at a time, and a magnificent, beautiful, thriving life as a whole. And I love you very much, and I look forward to see you again very, very soon.